that! Smashing the lion was one thing, but this? You just touch it and you melt 9 heads! That's cheating! This is an absolute no-win scenario.
That's exactly what Hera was counting on. Physical force might work, but she banked on him being defenseless against a toxic mental attack. But Heracles is trapped in the worst possible conditions, locked in a death game with this regenerative nightmare. The Hydra was an offspring of Typhon in the shape of a water serpent, and its very existence was a walking disaster. Arriving at the swamp, Heracles covered his mouth and nose with cloth to avoid suffocating from its poison, and shot flaming arrows to draw it out of the mud. The purple toxic gas spewed by the Hydra was a fatal gas that even the lion's hide couldn't block, eating away at the soul. Heracles fiercely charged and smashed one of its heads with his club. But the joy of victory was fleeting as a horrific miracle occurred. From the shattered single neck, 2 new heads grotesquely sprouted up. A cycle of infinite regeneration where the more he cut, the number of enemies doubled. This was exactly the perfect swamp of despair Hera had prepared.
Ugh, that's seriously gross. If you cut 1, 2 come out. Then if you cut all 9 heads, it becomes 18. Fighting just one is overwhelming enough. This isn't even jumping him. It's totally using an infinite multiplication hack. It's a zombie game where you can't fight coolly even if you try.
Ha! An undrying, mischievous aura that keeps coming out no matter how much you cut. Every time Heracles slices, the snakes are playing a prank, saying, "Peekaboo! 1 more added!"
If the flesh keeps sprouting, you have to scorch the cut part with fire.
9 heads. Then there will be 18 eyes to appreciate my perfect beauty. But rarity is the lifeblood of beauty, no matter how much that gross tentacle monster multiplies. Before my single noble aura, it's just cumbersome snake soup material.
Watch your mouth, because that cumbersome snake soup was dragging the hero's ankles to the very end of hell. Just when his stamina was bottoming out, surrounded by regenerating heads, Hera deployed another assassin hidden in the mud to finish Heracles off completely. While struggling against the Hydra, a massive assassin crab sent by Hera secretly approached and bit Heracles' ankle hard enough to cut it off. It was a desperate crisis. But Heracles, whose anger reached its peak, lifted his foot even in that horrific pain and stomped the giant crab's shell to pieces in a single blow, killing it. This crab later became the constellation Cancer. Realizing he couldn't break this cycle of infinite regeneration alone, Heracles finally called out to his nephew, Iolaus. If physical force couldn't overcome it, it was the moment fire was needed. Iolaus jumped into the battlefield, holding massive torches that seemed to burn the whole forest. The counterattack began when Heracles cleanly sliced off a head with his sword. In the fleeting moment before 2 heads could sprout, Iolaus rushed in and ruthlessly scorched the cross-section with his red-hot torch. The terrible stench of burning flesh and blood shook the swamp. But finally, the beast's regeneration began to stop. The monster's heads fell to the ground one by one, finally severing even the immortal golden head among the 9 that never dies. The hero buried it deep in the earth so it would never see the light again, and pressed it down with a massive boulder, sealing it forever. Then, slicing open the dead monster's belly, he deeply dipped his arrowheads into the fatal deadly poison pooled inside. The moment the worst deadly poison that could even wound a god, the poison arrow of Hydra, was born. This poison arrow later becomes a fatal boomerang that will bring about the hero's own horrific ruin. Having obtained the invincible lion's hide and the instant death poison arrows, Heracles thereafter broke through the harsh labors non-stop. He captured the golden horned hind, third labor, after racing across the earth for a year because its steps were faster than the wind. Caught the colossal Erymanthian boar, fourth labor, that terrified the whole mountain with his bare hands. Cleaned the Augean stables, fifth labor, piled up for decades in a single night by diverting a river, and even shot down the man-eating Stymphalian bronze birds, sixth labor, with the Hydra's poison arrows. No impossibility on Earth was a match for the hero anymore.
Yikes, look at the poison dripping from that arrowhead. Even a graze melts you to the bone, right? Equipped with the invincible lionhide item and an instant death poison arrow, hasn't Bro Heracles truly become a complete overpowered character now? You have to coolly admit there are no more monsters on Earth that can beat him.
That's what I'm saying. The more quests Goddess Hera gives, she's actually just handing Heracles a bunch of legendary overpowered items. She totally got reverse swept while trying to play a prank. With that poison arrow, no matter what monster comes out, it's just a one-shot kill.
One-shot kill? No, this is where it really begins. If those first 6 victories made him a hero, the trials that follow will drag him straight into ruin. In the next chapter, the hero will run to the very edge of the Forbidden Lands to pluck the final apple and ultimately force open the gates of the underworld, a place from which no one should ever return. Why Hera designed all these trials, and just how cruel the truth awaiting him at the end is. I'll unfold that entire grand journey all at once. Get ready for it. Class dismissed for today.